The screams came first. Always the screams. Fire bloomed against the night sky, orange and violent, turning sand into glass. The explosion had thrown her 15 feet, and now Dr. Elena Reeves lay on her back, 24 years old, ears ringing, tasting copper and smoke. Above her, stars wheeled in a sky that shouldn't be beautiful. Not now. Not when the world was ending. Doc, Doc, Corporal Martinez. She knew his voice even through the distortion of blown eardrums. He was dragging himself toward her, one leg twisted at an angle that made her stomach turn. Behind him, the transport vehicle burned. Inside it, 4 people she'd eaten breakfast with that morning. Elena tried to move. Her left side screamed protest, shrapnel. She'd seen enough combat wounds to diagnose herself in seconds. Fractured ribs, possible lung puncture, definitely bleeding internally. She had maybe an hour before shock would claim her. But Martinez had less. She forced herself up. The world tilted, steadied. Her medical kit was gone, blown 20 yards into the darkness. It didn't matter. She'd trained for this. She'd prepared for this. She knew exactly what to do when you had nothing but your hands and the will to save a life. "Stay with me," she said, crawling toward him. Blood soaked through her uniform. His or hers, she couldn't tell anymore. "Just stay with me." Behind them, secondary explosions ripped through what remained of their convoy. The screaming stopped. Elena knew what that meant. She was alone. The nightmare released her at 4:30 in the morning. Elena sat up in the narrow bunk, her heart hammering against ribs that no longer carried shrapnel, but still remembered. The air conditioning hummed in her quarters at Camp Lemonnier, Djibouti. Outside her window, the Horn of Africa was dark and quiet, peaceful. She hated the peaceful mornings most. 6 years. It had been 6 years since Operation Sandstorm. 6 years since she'd watched her entire medical team die. 6 years since she'd spent 72 hours alone in enemy territory, treating her own wounds, evading capture, waiting for rescue that came too late to matter. The therapist said the nightmares would fade. They lied. Elena stood, her body moving through the familiar ritual. Shower, uniform, coffee from the pot she kept in her room because the mess hall meant questions, meant small talk, meant maintaining the mask. At 5:15, she walked to the base medical facility, her boots marking rhythm on concrete still cool from night. 8 months she'd been here. 8 months as the quiet doctor who fixed training injuries and checked vitals and kept her head down. 8 months of building a life that had nothing to do with who she'd been before. It was working. Mostly. The medical tent was empty when she arrived. Elena liked it this way before the chaos of the day. She moved through the space with practiced efficiency, checking inventory, updating patient files, preparing for whatever the day would bring. Her hands were steady. They were always steady, even when the rest of her wanted to shake apart. "Morning, Doc," Elena turned. Corporal Ethan Blake stood in the doorway, young and eager, fresh from medical training. He'd been assigned to assist her 2 months ago. "Good kid, tried too hard." "Corporal," she said, "you're early. Wanted to review those trauma protocols before the SEALs come in for physicals." He held up a tablet. "The ones you wrote, they're different from what we learned at Fort Sam. Because Fort Sam didn't teach you how to perform a thoracotomy with a K-bar knife and a ballpoint pen. Because Fort Sam didn't prepare you for the moment when the textbook answers got people killed." "Different isn't wrong," Elena said. "Just field tested." Blake nodded, but his eyes held questions. Everyone had questions about Doc Reeves. Where had she trained? Why was someone with her skills stuck at a forward operating base in Djibouti? What was she running from? She never answered. The mask stayed on. At 0700, the SEALs arrived. They came in loud, the way SEALs always did. 6 men who moved like they owned every room they entered. Commander James Hawkins led them, 42 years old, gray, threading through dark hair, eyes that missed nothing. Behind him, Sergeant Derek Fitzgerald, the quiet one who watched everything. Then the others: Donovan, Mitchell, Blake, and Tyler Gallagher, 22 years old, still baby-faced despite 3 deployments. Elena had learned their names, their ranks, their medical histories. She knew Tyler had a slight heart murmur. Knew Fitzgerald had taken shrapnel to the shoulder 2 years back. Knew Hawkins had bad knees from a halo jump gone wrong. She knew them the way a doctor should know patients. She didn't know them at all. "Gentlemen," she said, "standard physicals today. Blake will handle vitals. I'll do the follow-ups." "Doc." Hawkins nodded respect in the gesture. They all respected her. The SEALs had seen her work, seen her handle emergencies with calm that bordered on supernatural. They called her Doc like it was a title of honor. They had no idea what she really was. The physicals went smoothly. Elena moved from man to man, checking reflexes, listening to heartbeats, asking the standard questions. "How are you sleeping? Any pain, any concerns?" She didn't ask the questions that mattered, the ones about nightmares and survivor's guilt and the weight of carrying ghosts. Doc, quick question. Fitzgerald. He'd finished his physical and lingered while the others headed out. Elena looked up from her notes. The trauma protocols you wrote, he said. The one about treating sucking chest wounds in austere environments. That level of detail, that's not from a textbook. Her fingers didn't pause on the keyboard. Combat medicine requires practical experience. I've worked with a lot of doctors, Navy docs, Army docs. None of them move the way you do. Elena met his eyes. Fitzgerald was dangerous. Not because he was aggressive, but because he was observant. Because he'd been a SEAL for 12 years and knew how to read people who didn't want to be read. How do I move, Sergeant? Like someone who's been shot at before. The silence stretched. Outside, someone was running drills. Cadence calls drifted through the morning heat. Is that a problem? Elena asked. Fitzgerald studied her for a long moment. Then he shook his head. No, ma'am, just an observation. He left. Elena returned to her notes, but her hands weren't quite as steady anymore. Lunch came and went. Elena ate at her desk reviewing supply requests. The base was running low on certain antibiotics. She flagged it for the logistics officer. Details mattered. In medicine, in life, the small things killed you if you weren't careful. At 1400 hours, Tyler Gallagher appeared in her doorway. Doc, you got a minute? She gestured to the chair. Tyler sat, but his usual easy smile was absent. He looked troubled. Elena waited. She'd learned that silence invited confession better than questions. It's the dreams, he said finally. After the last deployment, I keep seeing the kid, the one we couldn't save. Elena's chest tightened. She knew about those dreams. The ones where you were fast enough, skilled enough, good enough. The ones where you saved them. Then you woke up and remembered the truth. How often, she asked. 3-4 times a week. My girlfriend says I wake up yelling. I don't remember that part. Have you talked to the base psychologist? Tyler's jaw set. I'm not. I don't need therapy. I just need to stop thinking about it. 22 years old, still young enough to believe you could outrun trauma. Elena had been that young once, that naive. The mind doesn't work that way, she said gently. You can't just stop thinking about something. You have to process it, give it space, let it heal. Like a wound. Exactly like a wound. When Tyler looked at her, really looked. You ever have dreams like that, Doc, every single night? Sometimes. What do? Tell him the truth. Tell him that 6 years later you still wake up tasting sand and blood. Tell him that processing and healing are pretty words for learning to live with ghosts. I remember that I did everything I could, Elena said instead. That sometimes despite our best efforts we lose people, and I honor them by saving the ones I can. Tyler nodded slowly. The kid, he was 12, caught in crossfire. We got him to the medic, but he stopped, swallowed. Do you think it gets easier? No, Elena said, because lying to him would be cruel. But you get stronger, strong enough to carry it. After he left, Elena sat alone in the quiet medical tent. The afternoon sun slanted through the windows, painting everything gold. Beautiful, peaceful. She thought about 12-year-old boys who died in crossfire. She thought about her team. Martinez with his terrible jokes. Williams who'd wanted to be a surgeon. Lee who collected stamps. Patterson who had 3 daughters at home. All dead, all gone, all because she'd survived. The alarm shattered the afternoon quiet at 1600 hours. Elena was restocking supplies when the sound hit sharp and urgent. Red lights flashed. The base-wide speaker crackled to life. Mass casualty, incoming, multiple wounded. All medical personnel report immediately. She moved before conscious thought, muscle memory taking over. Blake burst through the door, eyes wide. Doc helicopter inbound, 3 SEALs critical. ETA 2 minutes. Elena's mind shifted gears. Training. Protocol. The mask locked into place. Get the trauma bays ready. I need 2 units O-negative standing by. Set up for emergency surgery. Move. Blake ran. Elena grabbed her trauma kit, checked supplies, ran through possibilities. Blast injuries, gunshot wounds, traumatic amputations. She'd seen them all. She could handle them all. The helicopter appeared a black speck against the afternoon sky. It grew larger, louder, the distinctive thump of rotors driving against air. Elena stood in the landing zone, hair whipping around her face, waiting. The bird touched down. The side door slammed open. Hawkins was first. Unconscious chest wound, blood soaking through improvised field dressing. Donovan followed, left leg shredded by shrapnel, tourniquet already applied. Both critical, both savable. Then they brought out Tyler Gallagher, 22 years old. Multiple gunshot wounds, chest, abdomen, right arm. His face was gray, his breathing shallow. The corpsman riding with him was doing CPR. Elena's world narrowed to a single point. Not again. Get them inside, she shouted. Hawkins to Bay 1, Donovan Bay 2, Gallagher with me, Bay 3. When they moved as one unit, the controlled chaos of emergency medicine. Elena ran alongside Tyler's stretcher, assessing damage, calculating odds. 3 gunshot wounds, massive blood loss, possible internal bleeding, possible organ damage. He was dying, right now, right in front of her. The nightmares flooded back. Martinez dragging himself through sand. Williams trying to hold his own intestines in. Lee so quiet after the blast. Patterson asking her to tell his daughters he loved them. No, not again. Not this kid who'd sat in her office 2 hours ago asking about dreams. Doc, Blake's voice uncertain. They'd wheeled Tyler into the trauma bay. Everyone was looking at her. Elena locked it down, shoved the memories into a box, sealed it tight. Blake, start 2 large bore IVs. I need lactated ringers wide open. Someone get me a blood gas. I need chest films now, not in 5 minutes now. Her hands moved with absolute certainty. Cut away the uniform. Assess the wounds. Entry wound, right anterior chest, no exit. Another abdomen, left side. Third through the arm, through and through, least of his problems. The chest wound was the killer. Pneumothorax, almost certainly. The lung was collapsing. Every breath he took was agony. He's coding. Blake's voice went high with panic. The monitor screamed. Flat line, time slowed. Elena looked at Tyler Gallagher's face. 22 years old, someone's son, someone's boyfriend. Someone who'd asked her how to stop dreaming about the ones you couldn't save. She'd told him you get stronger, strong enough to carry it. Time to prove it. Blake, start compressions. Someone bag him. I need a thoracotomy tray. Doc, we don't have. Then make one, scalpel, rib spreaders, clamps, suction. Now. Elena didn't wait. She grabbed the betadine, painted Tyler's chest in swift, efficient strokes. Sterility was a luxury for people who had time. Tyler Gallagher had seconds. She picked up the scalpel. Through the doorway, she could see them gathering. Fitzgerald, Mitchell, the other SEALs still in their gear, still covered in dust and blood, watching, waiting to see if their brother lived or died. Watching her. The scalpel bit into skin. Elena made the incision clean deep, following the line of the 5th intercostal space. Blood welled. She ignored it, cut deeper through muscle, down to bone. Rib spreaders. Blake's hands shook as he passed them. Elena fitted them into place, began to crank. Ribs spread with a sound like cracking knuckles. The world outside the trauma bay ceased to exist. There was only this, only the surgery, only the desperate fight to keep death from claiming another person she was supposed to protect. The chest cavity opened. Blood everywhere. Elena suctioned, searching for the source. There. The bullet had nicked the pulmonary artery. Not a complete tear, but enough to flood his chest with blood, enough to stop his heart. She could fix this. She'd done it before. In another life. In another war. Clamp! Her fingers found the artery. Clamped above the injury. Clamped below. The bleeding slowed. Stopped. Suction. I need to see what I'm working with. Blake worked the suction. The blood cleared. Elena assessed the damage. The nick was small. Repairable. If she was fast enough. If she was good enough. If she could do what she'd failed to do 6 years ago. Her hands moved in patterns she'd learned in the worst places on earth. Suture. Cut. Suture. Cut. Each stitch precise, each movement economical. No wasted motion, no hesitation. She'd learned this from a surgeon in Kandahar who'd done his residency in a war zone. She'd perfected it in Baghdad and Helmand, in a dozen places whose names were still classified. She'd used it to save operator after operator, mission after mission, until the mission where it wasn't enough. Heart rate coming back, Blake said, voice filled with wonder. Pressure's rising. Doc, he's stabilizing. Elena didn't respond. She was closing and now making sure every stitch would hold. Tyler would survive this, but he'd need more surgery, better facilities, a real hospital, but he'd live long enough to get there. She stepped back, looked at the monitor. Strong rhythm, good pressure, oxygenation improving. 22 years old, still breathing, still fighting. Elena became aware of the silence. She looked up. The SEALs were standing in the doorway, all of them. Fitzgerald in front, his face unreadable. Behind him, Mitchell. Donovan leaning on crutches, his leg bandaged. Even Hawkins conscious now, holding his chest but standing. They were looking at her the way soldiers looked at something they didn't understand, something impossible. That, Fitzgerald said quietly, was not a standard medical procedure. Elena pulled off her gloves, dropped them in the trash. Her hands were covered in Tyler's blood. Her uniform was soaked with it. She could feel it drying tacky and warm. "It's called a clamshell thoracotomy," she said. Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. "Emergency procedure for traumatic cardiac arrest. I've done it before." "Where?" Hawkins asked. His commander voiced the one that expected answers. Elena looked at him, at all of them. At Tyler breathing on his own, now alive, because she'd remembered skills she'd tried so hard to forget. "Classified," she said. She walked out of the trauma bay, down the hall, into her office, closed the door. Then she sat down at her desk and put her head in her hands and didn't cry because she'd learned a long time ago that crying was a luxury for people who hadn't already used up all their tears. Outside, she could hear them talking. Low voices, speculating, wondering. The mask had cracked. Now they'd want to know what was underneath. The sun set over Djibouti in shades of orange and red, painting the sky the color of distant fires. Elena sat in her darkening office watching the light fade. She should go back, check on Tyler, monitor his vitals, make sure the stitches held. She couldn't make herself move. Footsteps in the hallway, a knock at her door. "Doc, it's Fitzgerald." Elena didn't answer. Maybe he'd go away. He opened the door anyway. Stood in the threshold, backlit by the hallway fluorescence. "Tyler's stable," he said. "Medevac is coming in the morning. You saved his life." "I did my job." "That wasn't a job, Doc. That was something else entirely." Elena turned her chair to face him. Fitzgerald stepped inside, closed the door behind him. He moved carefully, like approaching something wild that might bolt. "I've been a SEAL for 12 years, he said. "Worked with a lot of doctors. Navy, Army, Air Force. Some good, some great. None of them could do what you just did. Experience. Experience comes from somewhere." He leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "That level of skill, that kind of calm under pressure. You don't learn that in medical school." Elena said nothing. "You move like an operator, Doc. You think like an operator. And today, you operated like someone who's done field surgery in combat zones more times than you can count." The silence stretched between them. "I'm not asking you to tell me," Fitzgerald continued. "I figure you got your reasons for keeping quiet. But those men out there, they trust you with their lives. Don't they deserve to know who you really are? They know I'm a good doctor. They know you're more than that, and now they're going to have questions." Elena stood, walked to the window. Outside, the base was settling into evening routine. Guard change. Mess hall lighting up. Normal. Safe. Everything she tried to build here. "I can't," she said quietly. "Can't or won't. Both." Fitzgerald nodded slowly. "Okay, but Doc, whatever you're running from, it's going to catch up eventually. It always does." He left. Elena stood alone in her office watching her reflection in the darkened window. A ghost in a white coat. A woman wearing a mask that was starting to crack. Somewhere in the medical tent, Tyler Gallagher was breathing because she'd remembered how to save him. Because she'd let herself become for just a few minutes the person she used to be. The person she'd sworn she'd never be again. Her phone buzzed, a message from Blake. "Tyler's awake, asking for you." Elena looked at her reflection one more time. Then she straightened her shoulders, smoothed her uniform, and put the mask back on. She had a patient to check on. The night watch had started when she entered Tyler's room. He was pale, hooked to monitors and IVs, but his eyes were clear. He smiled when he saw her. "Hey, Doc, how are you feeling?" "Like I got shot 3 times. He tried to laugh, winced. "They told me what you did. Said you cracked my chest open right here in the tent. Emergency procedure. Necessary to save your life. Still, pretty hardcore." His eyes searched her face. "Where'd you learn to do something like that?" Everyone wanted to know. Everyone would keep asking. And Elena was so tired of lying. "A long time ago," she said. "In a place very far from here." "Were you deployed before here?" "Yes." "Combat." Elena checked his IV, adjusted the flow rate, looked at the monitors instead of his face. "Yes," she said quietly. Tyler was quiet for a moment. Then, "The dreams you told me about, the ones where you remember you did everything you could, those were from deployment, weren't they?" "Yes." "And you still have them, after all this time?" Elena met his eyes, 22 years old. Old enough to know that some questions didn't have good answers. "Yes," she said, "I still have them." Do they ever show you the ones you saved or just the ones you lost?" The question hit like a fist to the solar plexus. Elena stood there looking at this young man who'd almost died today, who was asking her something no one had ever asked before. "Just the ones I lost," she said. Tyler nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Maybe that's what we're supposed to remember. Maybe that's how we make sure we keep trying to save the next one." Elena couldn't speak. This kid, this 22-year-old kid had just articulated something she'd spent 6 years trying to understand. "You should rest," she managed. "Doc." Tyler's voice stopped her at the door. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Elena looked back at him. Never. She walked out into the Djibouti night. The air was hot and dry, smelling of dust and diesel fuel. Somewhere someone was playing music. Somewhere people were laughing. Elena stood in the dark and thought about all the people she'd failed to save. And for the first time in 6 years, she let herself think about all the people she'd succeeded in saving too. Maybe Tyler was right. Maybe remembering the ones you lost was how you found the strength to keep fighting for the ones who remained. Or maybe she was just trying to justify carrying ghosts. Either way, tomorrow, Tyler Gallagher would be medevaced to better facilities. Tomorrow, he'd continue healing. Tomorrow, he'd live. Tonight, that was enough. Elena walked back to her quarters through pools of sodium light and shadow. Inside, the nightmare would be waiting. But first, she'd have a few hours of peace. She'd learn to take peace where she could find it. Behind her in the medical tent, monitors beeped steady rhythms, hearts beating, lungs breathing, lives continuing. The mask had cracked today. The seals had seen through it. Tomorrow, they'd have questions. Tomorrow, Elena would have to decide whether to keep hiding. But tonight, Tyler Gallagher was alive. Tonight, the ghosts were quiet. Tonight, that was enough. The morning after the surgery, Elena woke to silence. No nightmares, no screams, just the quiet hum of the air conditioning and pale light filtering through her window. She lay still, disoriented by the absence of horror. For 6 years, sleep had meant reliving Operation Sandstorm. But last night, nothing. Perhaps saving Tyler Gallagher had finally given the ghost something else to think about. She dressed and walked to the medical tent as the base came to life around her. The sun was already brutal, turning the tarmac into waves of heat shimmer. Somewhere someone was doing PT, counting cadence and rhythm with footfalls. Normal. Routine. Elena pushed through the tent entrance and stopped. Tyler was awake, sitting up, color returned to his face. Blake was checking his vitals, but it was the crowd around the bed that made her pause. Fitzgerald, Donovan, Mitchell. Even Hawkins, who should still be resting his chest wound. All of them gathered around their youngest teammate like a protective wall. They looked up when she entered. Something had changed in their eyes. Yesterday, they'd looked at her with respect. Today, they looked at her with something closer to awe and questions. So many questions. "Gentlemen," Elena said, "my patient needs rest, not a crowd. Just checking on our boy, Doc." Hawkins' voice was careful, too careful. "Wanted to see the miracle you pulled off." "It wasn't a miracle. It was a thoracotomy, standard emergency procedure. Nothing standard about what you did yesterday." This from Fitzgerald, watching her with those observant eyes. "I've seen combat surgeons work. You were faster, more precise, like you'd done it 100 times. Elena moved to Tyler's bedside, checking the monitor. Heart rate good, oxygen saturation excellent. The stitches were holding. He'd make it. "Experience comes with practice," she said. "What kind of practice gives you those skills?" Mitchell asked. The intelligence officer. Of course, he'd be analyzing, categorizing, building a profile. Elena met his gaze. "The kind that's in my personnel file." "Right." Mitchell nodded, but he didn't believe her. None of them did. "Out," Elena said. "Tyler needs rest. You can visit during designated hours." They filed out slowly, reluctantly. Fitzgerald was last. He paused at the door. "We know you're hiding something, Doc, and we respect your privacy. But yesterday you saved Tyler's life using skills that don't come from a standard residency program." He glanced back at the young SEAL in the bed. "Maybe you don't owe us explanations, but you've earned our trust. That should count for something." He left before she could respond. Elena turned back to Tyler. He was watching her with knowing eyes. "They're not wrong," he said quietly. "What you did yesterday, that wasn't normal. You're alive, that's what matters." "Yeah," he shifted, winced. "But it makes me wonder, who are you really, Doc?" Elena checked his IV line, avoiding his eyes. "I'm the person who's going to make sure you recover fully." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have." She left him there, retreated to her office, closed the door, leaned against it, and tried to steady her breathing. The walls were closing in. The questions were multiplying, and Elena knew with absolute certainty that the mask was failing. She couldn't hide anymore. The question was whether she was ready to stop trying. 3 days passed. Tyler recovered with the resilience of youth and excellent medical care. The medevac had been delayed due to weather, which meant Elena had to manage his post-op care herself. She was grateful for the distraction. It gave her something to focus on besides the weight of eyes watching her every move. The SEALs had become careful around her, respectful. But they watched, always watched. Fitzgerald especially. On the fourth day, Tyler was strong enough to sit in a chair. Elena found him there when she came to change his dressings, staring out the window at the endless expanse of African sky. "Thinking about home," she asked. "Thinking about the firefight." His voice was distant. "Trying to piece it together. We were extracting a local asset. Intel said the route was clear, but they hit us from 3 sides. Coordinated, professional." Elena's hands moved automatically, peeling back the bandages. The incision was healing beautifully. No signs of infection. "Someone betrayed the asset's location," Tyler continued. "Had to be. We walked right into it." He looked at her. "You ever been in a situation like that, where everything goes wrong at once?" Elena froze, just for a second, but Tyler saw it. "You have," he said, not a question. She focused on cleaning the wound. "Combat is unpredictable." "That's not what I asked." "Tyler, you know too much." His voice was gentle but insistent. "The way you asked about the ambush, about our positioning, our tactics, our response protocols, those weren't doctor questions. Those were operator questions." Elena sealed the new dressing, stepped back. "You should rest. My brother was like you." The words stopped her at the door. He'd get this look sometimes. Like he was somewhere else, seeing something we couldn't see. He was Army, Ranger Battalion, did 3 tours before he didn't come home. Elena turned slowly. Tyler was watching her with eyes too old for his face. "You remind me of him," he said. "That same look. Like you've seen things that changed you, things you can't talk about. I'm sorry about your brother. And I'm sorry about whoever you lost." Tyler's voice was soft. "Because I know you lost someone. I can see it. We all can." The silence stretched. Outside, someone was running drills. The rhythmic sound of boots on pavement, breath in synchronized cadence. "He was 19, Elena heard herself say. The words came from somewhere deep, somewhere she'd locked away. "My little brother, Jacob. He wanted to be a medic like me, enlisted right out of high school." She shouldn't be saying this, shouldn't be letting the walls down. But Tyler's eyes held understanding, and Elena was so tired of carrying it alone. "He made it through training, got deployed, I thought. I thought if he was a medic, he'd be safer. Like somehow that would protect him. But it didn't." "No." Elena's voice was barely a whisper. "It didn't." Tyler didn't push, didn't ask for details she couldn't give. He just nodded, accepting the fragment of truth she'd offered. "You remind me of him," Elena said. "Same age, same determination, same—" She stopped. "When they brought you in yesterday, when your heart stopped, all I could see was Jacob. But you saved me." "Yes, because you couldn't save him." The words hit like a physical blow. Elena gripped the door frame, steadying herself. "I should check on the other patients," she managed. "Doc." Tyler's voice followed her. "Whatever happened to your brother, whatever happened to you, you don't have to carry it alone. We're a team here. Teams share the weight." Elena left without responding, walked blindly down the corridor past Blake, who was organizing supplies, past the trauma bay where she'd cracked Tyler's chest open and remembered who she used to be. She made it to her office, closed the door, sat at her desk and put her head in her hands. She'd mentioned Jacob. After 6 years of never speaking his name, she'd told a patient about her brother. The walls were crumbling faster than she could rebuild them. A knock at the door. "Doc, it's Blake. Commander Hawkins needs to see you. Says it's important." Elena composed herself. Put the mask back on. "Tell him I'll be there in 5 minutes." She stood, checked her reflection in the small mirror on the wall. Red eyes, pale face. The mask wasn't holding as well as it used to. 5 minutes. She had 5 minutes to become Dr. Elena Reeves, competent military physician, woman with no past and no ghosts. She took a breath, put on the performance, walked out to face whatever was coming next. Hawkins was in his office, door closed. Elena knocked and entered when he called. The commander sat behind his desk, tablet in front of him, expression unreadable. "Sit, Doc." Elena sat, professional, composed, the model of calm. Hawkins studied her for a long moment. "Tyler's recovery is remarkable. You did exceptional work. Thank you, sir. The kind of work that raises questions. Here it was, the confrontation she'd been dreading. My medical credentials are in my file, Elena said carefully. They are. Medical school, residency in emergency medicine, board certified, all very impressive. Hawkins leaned forward. But credentials don't explain the skill level you displayed. That kind of precision under pressure, that level of calm when a patient is coding, that comes from somewhere. Experience. Doc. His voice was gentle but firm. I've commanded SEALs for 15 years. I know what experience looks like. I know what combat does to people, and I know when someone is carrying more than they're saying. Elena's hands were folded in her lap. She focused on keeping them still. You're an excellent doctor, Hawkins continued. The men respect you, trust you, but they're also starting to wonder. And when my team starts wondering about someone in our unit, I pay attention. Are you questioning my qualifications, sir? I'm questioning why someone with your qualifications is at a forward operating base in Djibouti instead of running a trauma center stateside. The answer was simple. Stateside meant questions, meant award ceremonies and recognition and people who knew her service record, meant being Dr. Elena Reeves, decorated combat medic survivor of Operation Sandstorm. Djibouti meant being nobody, just another doctor, anonymous, safe. I prefer field work, she said. Most doctors with your skills prefer positions where those skills are recognized and rewarded. Hawkins tapped the tablet. You've been here 8 months. Exemplary performance. No disciplinary issues, but also no personal connections. No phone calls home. No relationships with other personnel beyond professional courtesy. He was profiling her, building a picture. I value my privacy. You value your isolation. Hawkins sat back. Doc, I'm not trying to invade your privacy, but my team trusts you with their lives. I need to know that trust isn't misplaced. It isn't. Then help me understand. Why Djibouti? Why here? Why now? Why this particular assignment? Because here nobody knew. Because here she could be just a doctor. Because here the ghosts were quieter. I'm good at my job, Elena said instead. My reasons for being here don't affect my performance. Hawkins nodded slowly. Fair enough. But Doc, whatever you're running from, whatever you're hiding, sooner or later it catches up. Always does. The second person to tells her that in as many days. Is that all, sir? For now, he stood. Tyler's medevac is scheduled for tomorrow morning, weather permitting. You did good work, Doc. Whatever else is true, that's a fact. Elena stood, saluted, left. The hallway seemed too bright, too exposed. She made it back to the medical tent before her hands started shaking. Blake looked up from his inventory. You okay, Doc? Fine, just need to check on some things. She retreated to the supply closet, closed the door, leaned against the shelves, and focused on breathing. In, out, in, out. The walls were closing in. Hawkins was asking questions. The team was watching. Tyler had cracked her open with memories of Jacob. How long before someone dug deeper? How long before someone with the right clearance accessed the classified sections of her file? How long before Dr. Elena Reeves, quiet physician, became captain? Elena Reeves, Special Operations Combat Medic, sole survivor of a mission that killed 7 people. She didn't know. But she knew it wouldn't be long. The attack came on the 8th night. Elena was in the medical tent finishing paperwork. Tyler had been medevac that morning, strong enough to travel. The tent felt empty without him, quieter. She'd grown accustomed to his presence, his questions, his gentle insistence that she didn't have to carry everything alone. Fitzgerald was there too, getting a minor burn on his forearm treated. Training accident, nothing serious. They'd been making small talk, the kind of meaningless conversation that filled the space between doctor and patient. Then the sirens. The sound ripped through the night, urgent and terrifying. Red lights flashed, the base-wide speaker crackled. Attack! All personnel to defensive positions. This is not a drill. Elena's world tilted. The present blurred with the past. Sirens, lights, the smell of diesel and dust. Operation Sandstorm had started with sirens too. Doc! Fitzgerald's voice snapped her back. He was already moving, grabbing his rifle from where he'd leaned it against the wall. Outside, she could hear shouting, running feet, the distinctive crack of incoming fire. Mortars, small arms, coordinated assault. Training took over. Elena moved to the weapon locker. Every medical facility had one. For emergencies, for exactly this situation. Her hands knew the combination without thinking. The locker swung open. She grabbed the M4 carbine, checked the chamber. Loaded. Good. Her body moved through patterns she'd sworn she'd never use again. Tactical stance, Low ready. Scan for threats, assess exits, count friendlies. Fitzgerald was staring at her. Doc, what the hell? An explosion rocked the tent. Close. Too close. The concussion knocked equipment off shelves. Elena's ears rang, but she was moving instinct, overriding thought. Down, she grabbed Fitzgerald, pulled him behind the medical cabinets. Cover, concealment, protection. Another explosion. Closer. Elena's mind calculated trajectories, blast patterns, likely assault vectors. The attackers were hitting the perimeter from the east. 3, maybe 4 mortar positions. Small arms fire from the north. Classic L-shaped ambush. She knew this. She'd trained for this. She'd survived this. Stay down, she told Fitzgerald. Her voice was different. Command voice. Operator voice. She moved to the window. Weapon up. Scan the darkness beyond. Muzzle flashes at 2 o'clock. 300 meters. Enemy position. Her finger found the trigger. Muscle memory. She could take that shot. Could suppress that position. Could... What was she doing? Elena looked down at her hands. At the weapon she held with professional competence. At the tactical stance she'd assumed without thinking. At Fitzgerald watching her with wide eyes. Doc, he said quietly, where did you learn to handle a weapon like that? The question hung in the smoke-filled air. More explosions, more gunfire. The base defense was responding now. The attack was being repelled. But Fitzgerald wasn't looking at the attack anymore. He was looking at her. Those aren't medic reflexes, he said. The way you moved, the way you assessed the threat, the way you're holding that rifle. He stood slowly, keeping his hands visible. You're not just a doctor who's seen combat. You're someone who's fought in combat. Elena lowered the weapon. Her hands were shaking now. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving crash in its wake. She started, stopped. I can explain. Can you? Fitzgerald's voice wasn't accusatory, just curious, seeking truth. Because from where I'm standing, Doc, you just demonstrated skills that take years of specialized training. Skills that don't come from medical school. The all clear sounded. The attack was over. It had lasted maybe 5 minutes. But in those 5 minutes, Elena had revealed herself completely. There was no hiding now. I need to sit down. Fitzgerald guided her to a chair. Elena sat, the rifle still in her lap. She couldn't seem to let go of it. Doc, are you okay? She laughed. It sounded broken. No, I'm really not. That was a panic attack. Combat stress. I know what it was. Because you've had them before. Elena looked up at him. Fitzgerald's face showed concern, not judgment. Worry, not suspicion. I can't talk about it, she said. It's classified. Your service record. My real service record. Understanding dawned in Fitzgerald's eyes. You weren't always a base doctor. No, you were deployed. Combat operations. Yes. And something happened. Something bad enough that you ended up here hiding. Elena's throat was tight. She nodded. Fitzgerald pulled up a chair, sat across from her. How long ago? 6 years. And you've been carrying it alone all this time. I can't. Elena's voice broke. If people know, if they find out what happened, I can't. I need this place, this anonymity. I need to just be a doctor. But you're not just a doctor. You're something more. Someone who saved Tyler's life because you have skills most doctors don't possess. Someone who just assessed a combat situation with the expertise of a trained operator. Please, Elena looked at him. Don't tell them. Don't tell Hawkins. I need to keep doing this, helping people, saving lives. It's the only thing that makes it bearable. Fitzgerald was quiet for a long moment. Outside the base was securing damage assessment, casualty reports, the machinery of military response. I won't say anything, he said finally. Not yet, but Doc, you can't keep this inside forever. It's eating you alive. I know. And the team deserves to know. We trust you. That trust should go both ways. I know that too. So what are you going to do? Elena set the rifle aside, looked at her hands. They'd stopped shaking. I don't know, she whispered. Fitzgerald stood. You've got 48 hours. Figure it out. Because, Doc, you can't keep living like this. Half here, half somewhere else. Eventually, you have to choose. He left. Elena sat alone in the damaged medical tent, surrounded by overturned equipment and the smell of cordite. She'd been exposed. Fitzgerald knew. Soon others would know. The careful life she'd built was crumbling. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the fear and the panic, Elena felt something unexpected. Relief. The next morning, Commander Hawkins called her to his office. Elena knew what was coming. Fitzgerald must have reported. Or maybe Hawkins had seen for himself during the attack. Either way, the reckoning was here. But when she entered, Hawkins wasn't alone. A man in civilian clothes sat across from him, older graying eyes that had seen too much. He stood when she entered. Dr. Reeves. I'm Andrew Blackwood, Defense Intelligence Agency. Elena's blood went cold. Sir, I don't... Please sit. Blackwood's voice was professional, neutral. This won't take long. She sat. Hawkins remained standing, arms crossed. I've been reviewing your service record, Blackwood said. He had a tablet, classified designation on the screen. The complete record. Elena said nothing. Captain Elena Reeves, Special Operations Combat Medic, 6 years active service, 19 combat missions, Silver Star for Valor, Purple Heart. He looked up. Impressive record. That was a long time ago. 6 years. Not so long. Blackwood scrolled through the file. Operation Sandstorm, February 2018. Medical Team Alpha supporting a joint task force extraction. You were 24 years old. Elena's hands gripped the chair arms. The mission went bad. Blackwood continued. Ambush at the extraction point. 7 killed in action, 4 medics, 3 operators. You were the only survivor. Hawkins was watching her. She could feel his eyes. You sustained significant injuries. Bullet wound to the left side. Shrapnel. Broken ribs. But you treated yourself. Evaded enemy patrols for 72 hours. Survived alone in hostile territory until rescue arrived. Why are you here? Elena's voice was rough. Because yesterday's attack wasn't random. Blackwood set down the tablet. Intelligence suggests it was a probing assault, testing our defenses. And the tactics used were similar to those employed in Operation Sandstorm. The room felt too small, too hot. What are you saying? I'm saying that someone might know you're here, someone who has reason to remember Operation Sandstorm. Blackwood leaned forward. Captain Reeves, do you have any reason to believe you might be a target? The question hung in the air like smoke. Elena thought about that night 6 years ago, about the ambush that killed her team, about the enemy combatants who'd hunted her through the desert, about the 3 days of hell that had taught her exactly how much she wanted to live. No, she said, I have no reason to believe that. But even as she said it, she wondered if it was true. Blackwood nodded. Very well, but given your history and the current threat environment, I'm recommending increased security protocols. Commander Hawkins will brief you. He stood. Elena stood too. Captain Reeves. Blackwood extended his hand. Thank you for your service, both then and now. Elena shook his hand, watched him leave. Then she turned to Hawkins. You knew, she said. You already knew who I was. I suspected after Tyler's surgery, after Fitzgerald's report from last night. Hawkins gestured to the chair. Sit, please. Elena sat. She felt hollow, exposed. I requested access to your classified file, Hawkins said. Took some doing. Your service record is sealed pretty tight. But I'm cleared for it. He paused. I'm sorry about your team. Thank you. You've been carrying that alone for 6 years. It was my choice. Was it? Hawkins sat across from her. Or was it the only choice you felt you had? Elena didn't answer. My team trusts you, Hawkins said. They've seen what you can do. Now they're going to have questions. Real questions. And Doc, I think you owe them answers. I can't. Can't or won't. The same question Fitzgerald had asked. Both, Elena whispered. Hawkins nodded slowly. I'm going to tell you something. As a commander, as someone who's lost people under his command. He leaned forward. Carrying that weight alone doesn't honor the dead. It just kills the living slower. Elena looked up. Your team died protecting a mission, protecting their brothers. Would they want you spending 6 years hiding, diminishing your skills, pretending to be less than you are? I'm not pretending, I'm a doctor. You're a decorated combat medic who saved Tyler Gallagher's life because you remembered who you really are, even if just for a moment. Hawkins stood. You've got a choice, Doc. Keep hiding or trust the team you've already saved. He walked to the door, paused. For what it's worth, I think they'll understand. Operators recognize their own, and you, Captain Reeves, are one of us, whether you admit it or not. He left. Elena sat alone in the empty office. Outside, the base was recovering from the attack, repairing damage, reinforcing defenses, moving forward. Inside, Elena was still trapped in that desert 6 years ago, still hearing her team die, still feeling the weight of being the one who survived. But maybe Hawkins was right. Maybe it was time to stop hiding. Maybe it was time to trust. She stood. walked out into the Djibouti sun. And for the first time in 6 years, Captain Elena Reeves, Special Operations Combat Medic, considered the possibility that she didn't have to carry the dead alone anymore. The living were offering to help. All she had to do was let them. The decision weighed on Elena like stones in her chest. 48 hours. That's what Fitzgerald had given her. 2 days to decide whether the truth was worth the risk, whether trust was worth the vulnerability, whether Captain Elena Reeves could finally coexist with the doctor she'd become. The sun was setting over Camp Lemonnier when she returned to her quarters. The day after the attack, the base had settled into its usual rhythm. Repairs completed, defenses strengthened, life moving forward because stopping meant letting fear win. Elena sat on her bunk and stared at the photograph she kept hidden in her footlocker. 7 faces smiling back. Medical Team Alpha taken 3 weeks before Operation Sandstorm. Patterson with her arm around Williams. Lee making a peace sign. Martinez doing his ridiculous flex. And Elena, 24 years old, believing she was invincible. They'd all believe that. She traced Patterson's face with her finger. Would they want her hiding? Diminishing herself, pretending to be less than she was? Or would they want her living fully, even if it meant risking the carefully constructed walls she'd built? Elena didn't know. But tomorrow she'd have to choose. Morning came too quickly. Blake intercepted her halfway to the medical tent. "Doc, we've got a new transfer arriving. Sergeant David Ashford, logistics officer from Bagram." He checked his tablet. "Says he wants a medical clearance before reporting for duty. Old injury acting up." Elena nodded absently. "Have his records ready when he arrives." "Already pulls them. Interesting guy. Purple Heart, 3 deployments. Took shrapnel to the leg back in 2018. Elena stopped walking. 2018. Shrapnel wound. Bagram. What unit was he with? Her voice sounded distant. Blake scrolled. 28th Special Operations Support Group. Looks like he was attached to a joint task force for... Hold on, that section's redacted. The world tilted. 28th SOSG, Joint Task Force. 2018, Operation Sandstorm. "Doc, you okay? When does he arrive? Should be here within the hour. Want me to handle the intake?" "No." Elena's hands had gone cold. "I'll see him myself." She walked to the medical tent on autopilot. Ashford. She remembered that name. Remembered the young operator with the leg wound, the one Patterson had stabilized in those first chaotic minutes. The one they'd gotten on the evacuation bird before everything collapsed into fire and death. He'd survived. Made it out. Did he know she'd survived too? Or did he believe, like everyone else, that Captain Reeves had died with her team 53 minutes later? Sergeant David Ashford walked through her door. He was older now, gray threading through dark hair. A scar ran down his left forearm where the shrapnel had torn through. He moved with the careful economy of someone who'd learned to live with old pain. Their eyes met. Recognition hit like a physical blow. "Captain Reeves." His voice was hoarse, shocked. "They told us you were dead." Elena gestured to the chair with a hand that trembled. "Sit, before you fall." He sat heavily, never taking his eyes off her. "After the rescue operation. After they extracted me." He swallowed hard. "Command said everyone else was KIA, the whole medical team. The operators who stayed behind, everyone." "Not everyone." Elena's voice was steadier than she felt. "I survived. How Doc Patterson got me on that bird told me she'd be right behind me. Then the explosion." He stopped, breathed. "How are you here?" 3 days in a cave, self-treated wounds, evaded patrols." The words came automatically. She'd said them to therapists, to debriefers, to the investigating officers who'd wanted to know how she alone had made it out. "They found me on the 4th day. By then the casualty reports were filed. I asked them to keep it that way." "Why, because I'm the medic." The phrase tasted bitter. "I'm supposed to save people, and I couldn't save any of them." Ashford leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Patterson saved my life. Tourniquet pressure bandage got me stable enough for transport. Last thing she said was, 'Tell Captain Reeves I'll take care of the others.'" Then she ran back toward the firefight. Elena's throat constricted. She could see it. Patterson's determined face. Her absolute certainty that she could save everyone if she just worked fast enough. "She didn't make it," Elena whispered. "I know, they told me later. Her and Williams and Lee and Martinez." Ashford's hands clenched. "All KIA, and I thought you too. I went to your memorial service. Met your parents." The room spun. Her parents. They'd thought she was dead. How long hours days? The classified debrief had taken weeks. Had anyone told them, I survived because Martinez pushed me into cover, used his body as a shield. Elena forced the words out. I carry that every single day. I carry Patterson saving me. Ashford met her eyes. 6 years of knowing I'm alive because she died. 6 years of wondering if I earned it. The silence between them held 6 years of parallel grief. Why here? Ashford asked finally. Why Djibouti? Because nobody knows me here. I can just be a doctor. Help people. Save lives. Elena looked at her hands. Without the weight of being the one who survived. Does it work the hiding one? No. The admission came easier than she expected. The ghosts don't care how far you run. Ashford nodded slowly. The team here, they know. Some suspect. Commander Hawkins accessed my classified file. He knows everything. Elena paused. And I have 48 hours to decide whether to tell the rest. You're scared they'll see you differently. I'm scared they'll see me as I really am. Someone who failed. You survived impossible odds. You're still serving, still saving lives. Ashford touched the scar on his arm. That's not failure. That's honoring what Patterson and the others fought for. Or it's cowardice, running from the truth. Then stop running. His voice was gentle but firm. Trust them. Let them help you carry it. Because, Captain, I've tried doing this alone for 6 years. It doesn't work. We're not meant to carry ghosts by ourselves. Before Elena could respond, Blake appeared in the doorway. Doc, Commander Hawkins needs to see you. He says it's urgent. Elena and Ashford exchanged glances. This is it, Ashford said quietly. The moment you stop hiding. Elena stood, straightened her uniform, took a breath. Then I guess I should face it. The briefing room held more people than she expected. Hawkins sat at the head of the table. Fitzgerald stood to his right. Donovan leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Mitchell had his tablet out, analytical expression in place. Blake stood near the door. Even some of the other medical and support staff had gathered. All of them watching as Elena entered Ashford, a silent presence behind her. Hawkins gestured to the front of the room. Dr. Reeves has something she needs to share. I expect you to listen with the respect and understanding our people deserve. Our people. The words hit Elena hard. She walked to the front, turned to face them. All these men who'd trusted her without knowing the full truth, who'd relied on her skills, respected her competence, accepted her into their unit. Now they would know everything. 6 years ago, Elena began, her voice carrying despite the trembling in her chest. I wasn't Dr. Elena Reeves' base physician. I was Captain Elena Reeves' Special Operations Combat Medic Medical Team Alpha. She watched surprise ripple through the room. Fitzgerald nodded like he'd known. Mitchell's expression sharpened with interest. Donovan's arms tightened across his chest. I served for 6 years, 19 combat missions, supporting special operations across 3 theaters. Elena paused. I was good at my job, saved a lot of lives, lost some too. Then came Operation Sandstorm. The room went absolutely silent. February 2018. My team, 4 combat medics, was supporting a joint task force extraction in hostile territory. We were the best. Doc Patterson, she'd been a trauma surgeon before enlisting. Williams had field experience from Fallujah. Lee could perform procedures in the dark. Martinez, he could talk a dying man into fighting just a little longer. She could see them, hear their voices, feel their presence like they were standing beside her. The mission was routine. Extract a high-value asset, get out clean. But we got ambushed, IED followed by coordinated assault. The initial blast was... Elena stopped, started again. Catastrophic. Ashford's voice came from the back, steady and strong. I was there. I was one of the operators. Captain Reeves's team saved my life in those first minutes, got me stabilized and evacuated. Then they stayed behind to save the others. Elena nodded gratitude. Patterson got Sergeant Ashford on the evacuation bird. Told him she'd handle the rest. Elena's voice cracked. But the enemy kept coming, and we kept fighting, kept treating casualties, because that's what we did. That's who we were. The memories flooded back, unstoppable now. Patterson died maintaining pressure on an operator's severed artery. Williams died covering Lee while she tried to perform emergency surgery in the middle of a firefight. And Martinez, Elena's hands clenched. Martinez saw the grenade, saw it heading for me. He pushed me into a depression in the ground and covered me with his body. Someone in the room made a sound, grief recognition, understanding. I was wounded, bullet through my left side, shrapnel in my ribs. I should have died with them. But Martinez saved me, bought me time with his life. Elena looked at each of them. I was the only survivor. 7 dead, 4 medics, 3 operators. And me alone in a cave for 3 days treating my own wounds, listening to enemy patrols search for survivors. The silence was profound. Then Donovan pushed off the wall. You lied to us. His voice was hard, angry. 8 months. 8 months of pretending to be something you're not. We trusted you, brought you into our team, and you were lying the whole time. Ryan, Fitzgerald started. No, Donovan cut him off. She had credentials, a background, a whole identity built on deception. How do we know what else she's hiding? How do we know we can trust anything she says? The words hit like blows. Elena forced herself to meet his eyes. You're right, I lied. I minimized my background. Let you think I was just a doctor with some field experience. She took a breath. I hid because I couldn't face being Captain Reeves' decorated combat medic woman who survived when 7 better people died. That's not a good enough reason to lie to your team. You're right, it's not. Elena's voice was quiet but firm. I lied because every time someone thanks me for my service, I see Martinez's body covering mine. Every time someone calls me a hero, I see Patterson running back into the firefight. Every time someone respects me for surviving, I want to scream that I didn't earn it. Donovan's anger faltered, but he didn't back down. We all carry losses. We all have ghosts. That doesn't give you the right to lie about who you are. No, it doesn't, Elena agreed. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't trust you. I'm sorry I hid. I'm sorry for all of it. Blake spoke up young and earnest. Sir, with respect, Doc has taught me everything she knows. Every technique, every protocol, every lesson learned in those 6 years and 19 missions. If she was really trying to hide who she was, she wouldn't have shared those skills. But she did, because she wants us to save lives the way her team did. Mitchell added, the tactical knowledge makes sense now. The way you move the situational awareness. You're not just a doctor who's seen combat. You're a combat operator who happens to be a doctor. But Donovan wasn't convinced. He looked at Hawkins. Sir, I request reassignment. I can't trust a team member who's built her entire presence here on deception. The words hung in the air like gunsmoke. Hawkins studied Donovan for a long moment. Then he looked at Elena. Captain Reeves, would you step outside, please? Elena nodded, walked out. Ashford followed. In the hallway, she leaned against the wall, hands shaking. That went well, she said bitterly. Donovan's scared. Ashford's voice was calm. Scared that if you lied about this, what else might you be hiding? It's not personal, it's survival instinct. Feels personal. Give them time, give him time. Ashford looked toward the closed door. They're having the conversation they need to have, without you there to be defensive about. Inside, voices rose and fell. Elena couldn't make out words, but she heard Donovan's anger. Fitzgerald's measured tones, Hawkins's command voice cutting through. 20 minutes passed. The door opened. Hawkins emerged. Come back in, Captain. Elena entered. Donovan was still standing, but his posture had shifted. Less aggressive, more uncertain. Hawkins gestured for her to stand at the front again. I've explained to Sergeant Donovan that your service record, while classified, has been verified through proper channels. Your credentials are legitimate. Your skills are earned. Your reasons for privacy, while perhaps misguided, were not malicious. Donovan looked at her. Really looked. I can't just forget you lied. I don't expect you to. But, he paused, seemed to struggle with something. Fitzgerald reminded me about Tyler, about how you saved him using skills that came from, he gestured vaguely, from all of that, from your team's training. Elena nodded. And Blake says you've been teaching him everything, not holding back, sharing all the hard-earned knowledge. Donovan's jaw worked. So maybe you weren't trying to hide from us. Maybe you were trying to hide from yourself. The insight cut deep. Maybe, Elena whispered. Fitzgerald stepped forward. Doc Captain, whatever we call you. You saved Tyler's life. You did it using skills that came from the worst possible experience. From watching your team die while learning how to keep people alive. He turned to address the room. I don't care what she called herself. I care that when my brother was dying, she cracked open his chest and refused to let death win. I care that she's the best combat medic I've ever seen. And I care that she's been carrying trauma that would destroy most people, but she still shows up every day to save our lives. Mitchell added, the operational knowledge, the tactical awareness, the calm under pressure. It all makes sense now. You're not just medical staff. You're one of us. Not just one of us, Ashford said from his position by the door. One of the best. I'm alive because of her team, because of everything they taught her, everything they died protecting. Donovan looked around the room, at his teammates, at Elena. I need time, he said finally. Time to process this, to figure out if I can trust you again. That's fair, Elena said. But Donovan's voice softened slightly. Your team, the ones who died, they'd be proud of you for still fighting, still saving people. That takes more courage than I gave you credit for. It wasn't acceptance, but it was a start. Hawkins stood. Gentleman, Captain Reeves has given us the truth. Now we do what teams do. We carry the burden together. We honor the fallen by protecting the living. And we support the sister who's proven she'll die before letting us down. The team stood as one. Not quite a salute, but a gesture of solidarity. Fitzgerald approached first, extended his hand. Welcome to the team, Captain. For real this time. Elena shook it. Then Mitchell's, Blake's. One by one they accepted her. Donovan hung back. When their eyes met, he gave a small nod. Not forgiveness yet, but acknowledgement. It was enough. Ashford was last. The hard part's done, he said quietly. You told the truth. Now comes the harder part. What's that? Learning to live with it, learning that you deserve to be alive. Elena nodded. For the first time in 6 years, surrounded by people who knew the truth and hadn't turned away, she thought maybe it was possible. The alarm came 72 hours later. Elena was reviewing supply requisitions when the sirens tore through the afternoon quiet. Red lights flashed. The base-wide speaker crackled with urgency. Mass casualty event, multiple incoming. Checkpoint 7 ambushed, all medical personnel report immediately. Elena moved before conscious thought. Blake appeared in her doorway, face pale. Doc, they're saying 15 wounded, some critical. ETA to 6 minutes. Get every trauma bay prepped. Call in all available staff. I need blood standing by 3 units per bay. Move. Blake ran. Elena grabbed her kit and headed for the landing zone. Around her, the base exploded into controlled chaos. Personnel racing to positions. Defensive measures activating. The machinery of military response grinding into gear. Fitzgerald appeared at her side, rifle ready. Doc, you should stay inside until we know what's happening. Those are my patients incoming. I'm exactly where I need to be. He nodded, didn't argue. Just position himself between her and any potential threat. The first helicopter arrived in a storm of dust and noise. They started unloading stretchers. Elena moved among them, assessing triaging, making split-second decisions about who needed what and when. Stable, walking wounded, critical, critical, stable, critical. The categories formed in her mind automatically, years of training taking over. Then the second bird landed, and the third, 15 wounded became 18, then 20. Blake, Elena's voice cut through the chaos. Bay 1, the soldier with the chest wound. Bay 2, abdominal injuries. Bay 3 is mine. I'm taking the amputation and the blast traumas. Doc, that's 4 patients. I said Bay 3 is mine. Get the others distributed. We don't have time to argue. Blake nodded and ran. Elena moved to her assigned bay where they were already bringing in the critical cases. Young private, maybe 22. Blast injury. Left leg gone below the knee. Bleeding controlled but going into shock. Second patient right behind him, blast trauma to the chest, labored breathing. Third incoming. This wasn't like Tyler's surgery. No single dramatic save. This was combat medicine in its rawest form. Multiple patients, limited resources, impossible choices. Elena looked at the 3 men laid out before her, assessed in seconds. The amputee was stable for now if she could manage the shock. The chest trauma needed immediate intervention or he'd suffocate. The third patient wasn't here yet but would be critical based on the radio chatter. She couldn't save all of them alone. Blake, she called him over. You're taking the amputation. I'll talk you through it. Doc, I'm not qualified. You are now. Assess for additional injuries, manage the shock, keep him alive until we can get him to surgery. You've watched me do this a dozen times. Now it's your turn. Blake's face went white, but he moved to the patient, hands already reaching for supplies. Good. Check for hidden bleeds. Tourniquet is holding, but verify circulation to what's left of the limb. Elena turned to her second patient as a nurse arrived. You with me? This one's got blast lung. We need to intubate and get him on a vent now. She worked with furious precision. Tube down the throat. Confirm placement. Connect to ventilator. Adjust settings. All while calling instructions to Blake. Blake, how's his pressure? Dropping 80/40. Start pressors. Small dose. We need to support his BP without stressing what's left of his vascular system. Got it. The third patient arrived, young specialist, no older than 25, multiple shrapnel wounds across his torso and arms, conscious, screaming. And he looked exactly like Jacob. Same dark hair, same slight build, same age her brother would have been if he'd lived. Elena froze, the world blurred, present and past colliding. The trauma bay became a desert night. The patient became her brother, became Martinez, became all the people she'd failed to save. Doc, Blake's voice urgent. I need you. But Elena couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The ghosts were too loud, the memories too vivid. Martinez pushing her down. Patterson running toward gunfire. Jacob in a hospital bed dying while she was deployed half a world away. Too many. She'd failed too many. Captain Reeves, Ashford's voice. He was there somehow in the trauma bay, his hand on her shoulder. You're in Djibouti. That's not Jacob. That's not Martinez. That's Specialist Walker, and he's alive right now. But he needs you. Elena looked at the young man screaming on the gurney, looked at Blake struggling with the amputee, looked at her intubated patient fighting for every breath. They were all alive, all savable, if she could push through the fear. I don't know if I can, she whispered. You can, because you're not alone this time. Ashford gestured around the bay, Blake working frantically, the nurse monitoring vitals, support staff ready to assist. You've got a team. Use them. The words cut through the paralysis. She had a team. She wasn't in that desert anymore. Wasn't the sole survivor struggling alone. Elena breathed, focused, let the present solidify around her. Okay, she moved to Walker. I've got the shrapnel trauma. Blake's status on your patient. Pressure stabilizing, he's holding. Good. Keep monitoring. Call out if anything changes. Elena turned to the nurse. You watch my vent patient. Any drop in oxygen saturation, any change in pressure settings that you tell me immediately. They nodded. Elena bent over Walker, assessed the wounds with clinical precision. Multiple penetrating injuries. Lots of blood, but mostly superficial. One piece of shrapnel lodged near the brachial artery. That was the danger. I need control of this bleeder. Clamp, suction. Someone get me better light. Her hands moved through patterns learned in hell and perfected through repetition. Find the vessel. Isolate it, clamp above and below, extract the shrapnel, repair the damage. Walker's screaming subsided as the pain medication hit. You're going to be okay, Elena told him. Multiple wounds, but all treatable. You'll keep the arm. You'll heal. Behind her, Blake called out. Doc, pressure's dropping again on my patient. Check the tourniquet. Make sure you don't have a hidden arterial bleed from the stump. How do I run your hand along what's left of the thigh? Feel for unusual warmth or swelling. That's where blood's pooling. A pause, then Blake's voice steadier. Found it. There's swelling on the lateral aspect. Good. You need to ligate that vessel. Can you see it? I think so. You can do this. Clamp it, tie it off. You've done this in simulation. Not on a real person. First time for everything. Talk to him while you work. Keep him calm. He needs to know you're in control, even if you're terrified. Blake's voice speaking to the patient now. Hey man, I'm Blake. I've got you. This is going to hurt for a second, but then you'll feel better. I promise. Elena finished extracting shrapnel from Walker, irrigated the wounds, started closing the major ones, all while monitoring her vent patient, calling instructions to Blake, coordinating with the staff. This was different from Tyler's room. No single heroic moment, no dramatic chest-cracking save. This was leadership. This was teaching. This was using everything her team has taught her and passing it forward. This was honoring Patterson and Williams, and Lee and Martinez, by making sure their knowledge didn't die with them. 20 minutes later, all three patients were stabilized. Blake's amputee was headed to surgery, pressure, stable bleeding, controlled. Walker was cleaned and closed, shrapnel removed, artery saved. The vent patient was breathing easier, oxygen levels improving. Elena stepped back, looked at what they'd accomplished. Blake, you did good work. The young corpsman was shaking. I was terrified the whole time. Good. Fear keeps you sharp, but you pushed through it and saved that man's life. Elena squeezed his shoulder. Patterson would be proud. Hell, I'm proud. Around them, other teams were finishing with their patients. Fitzgerald appeared in the doorway. Doc Donovan took shrapnel to the shoulder. Nothing critical, but he's asking for you specifically. Elena found Donovan in Bay 2. He sat on a gurney, shirt off, blood staining his left shoulder. His face was tight with pain, but his eyes were clear. Heard you handled 3 critical patients at once, he said. Heard you took shrapnel covering your team's retreat. Just doing my job. Me too. Elena examined the wound. Shrapnel embedded in the trapezius muscle. Painful but not life-threatening. She could extract it here. This is going to hurt. I can take it. She worked in silence for a moment, numbed the area, started extracting the metal fragment. I was wrong, Donovan said suddenly. What I said before about trust. You had every right. No, I was angry because I was scared. Scared that if you could lie about something that big, what else might be hidden? But watching you today, watching you save 3 men while teaching Blake to save a 4th. He paused. That's not someone hiding. That's someone giving everything they have. Elena extracted the shrapnel, dropped it in the tray with a metallic clink. Your team, Donovan continued. The ones who died, they taught you all of that, didn't they? Everything that matters. Then they're still saving lives. Through you, through Blake, through everyone you teach. Donovan looked at her. That's not failure, Captain. That's legacy. Elena's throat tightened. She focused on cleaning the wound. I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to earn our trust again, Donovan said. You earned it the day you cracked Tyler's chest open and refused to let death win. Everything after that was just me being an ass. You were protecting your team. You are my team. Donovan extended his good hand. Brothers, Elena shook it. Family. She finished bandaging his shoulder, sent him to rest, turned to find Hawkins waiting. Walk with me, Captain. They moved through the base in the golden light of late afternoon. Around them, the controlled chaos of post-attack recovery, damage assessment, patient transport, the rhythm of military life reasserting itself. 20 patients, Hawkins said, 3 critical. All survived because you coordinated a response that maximized our limited resources. Blake deserves the credit. He saved that amputee. Because you taught him, trusted him, gave him the confidence to try. Hawkins stopped walking. That's leadership, Captain. That's what I need. Elena waited. I'm creating a new position, Chief of Combat Medicine Training. You develop curriculum-trained medics, pass on everything you learned from your team and your 6 years of service. He paused. I want you for it. Elena thought about Patterson's techniques, Williams's calm, Lee's precision, Martinez's ability to make dying men fight for life. She thought about Blake hands shaking but steady saving a man because someone had taught him he could. I'll need resources, equipment for realistic training scenarios, access to experienced operators for tactical medicine instruction. You'll have whatever you need. And I want Tyler Gallagher. When he's fully recovered, I want him as an assistant instructor. He understands what it means to be saved. He'll teach from that perspective. Hawkins smiled. Done. Anything else? I want to train not just our medics. I want to offer our program to other units. Make what Patterson and the others taught me available to every combat medic who needs it. Ambitious. They were the best. Their knowledge deserves to be shared. Hawkins extended his hand. Welcome to your new position, Chief Reeves. Elena shook it, felt something shift inside her. Not quite peace, but purpose, direction. A way to honor the dead by preparing the living. 3 days later, Ashford found her in the medical tent. She was organizing training materials, building the curriculum that would become her legacy. Got a minute, he asked. They walked to the edge of the base where the desert stretched endlessly. The same desert that had almost killed her 6 years ago. The same terrain that had tested whether she wanted to live. She'd survived, and now she knew why. Blackwood came by, Ashford said. That DIA officer who was asking about the attack patterns. Elena tensed. Investigations complete. The attack on the base had nothing to do with Operation Sandstorm. Different group, different tactics. You're not a target. Relief flooded through her. You can stop looking over your shoulder now, Ashford continued. Stop waiting for the past to catch up. It's done. Is it ever really done? No, but it gets quieter, especially when you're not carrying it alone. He pulled something from his pocket, a small package wrapped in brown paper. This came for you from Tyler Gallagher. Elena opened it. Inside was a bracelet, simple silver, 7 names engraved. Patterson, Williams, Lee, Martinez, 3 operators she'd never known well enough, and a note in Tyler's handwriting. Doc, you told me once that we honor the ones we lost by saving the ones we can. This is so you remember you don't carry them alone anymore. We all carry them now. Every medic you train, every life we save, that's your team still fighting, still winning. Thank you for teaching me that surviving isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering and living anyway. Tyler, Elena's hands shook as she fastened the bracelet around her wrist. He's right, Ashford said quietly. We all carry them now. Patterson, Williams, Lee, Martinez. Every medic who learns from you, they're learning from your whole team. That's not just surviving. That's making sure they didn't die for nothing. Elena touched the engraved names. 7 ghosts who would never be quiet. But maybe they didn't need to be. Maybe their voices were meant to guide, not haunt. I'm still scared, she admitted. Scared that I'll fail someone else, that I'll freeze again, that I'm not worthy of. You'll be scared for the rest of your life, Ashford interrupted. That's what combat does. What matters is what you do despite the fear. And today you saved 3 men while teaching a 4th to save a 5th. That's who you are, Captain. Not the person who survived. The person who fights. 6 months later, Elena stood before a classroom of young medics. They sat in neat rows, notebooks ready, faces eager. 23 students from 4 different units. All of them here to learn combat medicine from the best program in the theater. A program built on the foundation of Medical Team Alpha's sacrifice. Tyler Gallagher stood at the back, fully recovered, wearing instructor credentials. Blake sat in the front row, now a qualified combat medic himself, here to continue advanced training. Ashford leaned against the wall observing. He'd requested permanent assignment to Camp Lemonnier, said he had unfinished business honoring the people who'd saved his life. Elena touched the bracelet on her wrist. 7 names, 7 voices, 7 reasons to be standing here. Combat medicine isn't about being perfect, she began. It's about being prepared, about knowing that textbook answers aren't enough when someone's dying in front of you, about learning to make impossible decisions and live with the consequences. She held up her medical kit, the same one she'd carried for 6 years, the one Patterson had helped her pack, the one that had saved countless lives. The medics who trained me, they're not here to teach you themselves better. They died doing this job, died saving lives in circumstances none of us would wish on anyone. Elena looked at each student, but their knowledge didn't die with them. Their techniques, their courage, their absolute refusal to give up on a patient, that lives on. She opened the kit. When I teach you how to treat penetrating chest trauma, I'm teaching you Patterson's method. When I show you how to maintain calm under fire, that's Williams. When you learn to work in complete darkness, that's Lee. And when you learn to talk a dying patient into fighting just a little longer, that's Martinez. Elena met Tyler's eyes across the room. He nodded. So when you save a life using what I teach you, remember, you're not just honoring me. You're honoring an entire team of medics who believed that every life was worth fighting for, who proved it with their own. She turned to the teaching board. Let's begin. Lesson 1. Multiple casualty triage in austere environments. You have 3 critical patients, limited supplies, and no backup. What do you do? The students leaned forward, ready to learn, ready to carry forward the legacy. And as Elena taught, she felt them there. Patterson looking over her shoulder. Williams nodding approval. Lee's quiet pride. Martinez's terrible jokes in the back of her mind. They weren't gone. They'd never be gone. They lived in every technique she demonstrated, every life saved by a medic she'd trained, every impossible situation where someone remembered their lessons and refused to give up. That night, Elena sat in her quarters writing a letter. Not to headquarters or to family, to the parents of her fallen teammates. Letters she'd been too afraid to write for 6 years. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Patterson, your daughter saved my life. Not just in the moment she pushed me to cover, but in everything she taught me about what it means to be a healer in war. I've spent 6 years wondering how to honor her sacrifice. I think I finally know. I'm training the next generation of combat medics, teaching them her techniques, her calm, her refusal to give up. Every patient they save, that's your daughter still fighting, still winning. She would be proud of the legacy she left. I hope you can be proud too. With deepest respect and gratitude, Captain Elena Reeves. 7 letters, 7 families, 7 ways of saying thank you, and I'm sorry, and I'll never forget. She finished writing as the sun rose over Djibouti, golden light spilling across the desert. Beautiful despite everything. Elena fastened the bracelet around her wrist, 7 names catching the light. She wasn't the quiet doctor hiding from her past anymore. She was Captain Elena Reeves, Chief of Combat Medicine Training, teacher, leader, survivor. Woman who'd learned that honoring the dead meant living fully, meant passing forward every lesson bought with blood, meant refusing to let their sacrifice become just another tragedy filed away in classified folders. Her team had bought her life with their own. She would spend The rest of hers, making sure it was a life worth the price they'd paid. That was enough. It had to be. And finally, after 6 long years of carrying ghosts alone, Elena Reeves understood. She'd never be carrying them alone again. Every medic she trained, every life they saved, every impossible situation where someone remembered her lessons and fought anyway. That was Medical Team Alpha still serving, still fighting, still winning. Patterson, Williams, Lee, Martinez. Not dead, never dead. Just operating through different hands now. And that Elena thought as she walked toward the training center where 23 eager students waited. That was the truest form of immortality. Not being remembered, being continued.